Hey guys, my name is Mike and I'm here with
Al.
We own Grit Cycling in Louisville, Kentucky, and we're going to give you a preview today of the Louisville Ironman course, the bike portion. If you look slightly to your left from this video, you'll see a little bump in the curb. That's actually where you're going to come out of transition to start the bike course. So this is going to be the whole thing where you start, and on the way back, we'll come back to this point as well. Here we go. So you'll actually won't be able to mount up until you get onto the road away from the sidewalk. So you'll mount right about here, and then you'll be corralled up to this red light, which we're going to turn left.
So that part can get a little bit congested just depending on where you are timing wise and how many people are around you at that point. There's usually a decent amount of fans right here, so fun little spot.
Also, the expo and transition and all that for race day will be right back where we just left from, the Great Lawn. And then this is River Road as far as a GPS is concerned. So you go out this little road here. Also on race morning, you will more than likely be walking up the sidewalk to our left to get to the swim start, because the river is within sight on the left. So if you see the flag, generally, or the grassy area around that flag is where you'll meet for the swim start. They did it a little bit differently in 17 from previous years. They basically had you line up and swim start, so under an hour to hour 10, hour 10, hour 20, etc. And so they, wherever you wanted to be, and they would basically take that group of people, put them in the water, and get the next group of people. But the swim jump in is right to our left right now.
In the years before, they just you just lined up along the sidewalk in whatever order, really. It wasn't time-based. So I'm assuming that they'll probably stick with time-based, if I had to guess, but
it worked a lot better for folks. It was much easier on everyone, because if you were, if you're an hour 40 swimmer, you had most of the group in front of you. You didn't have to necessarily fight them for positioning, and you just hung out in your group till your call.
And swim-wise, you're basically, so some other Ironmans that I've done, you just kind of run in off of like a beach or somewhere like that. This one's off of a dock, so you basically, once you get down there, they'll kind of put you into two different jumping points, and you'll just kind of jump off into the water. So your feet aren't going to be touching anything. You're going to be jumping straight off the dock and into the water and starting the swim.
So Al did this in 2016, and I did it in 15, 16, and 17, and we're both doing it in this year, 18. And we both rode the course several times as well, so we're pretty familiar with the area.
And this beginning part's all pretty flat at the moment. Paving wise, this part's decent. It's actually better, I think, than it used to be.
These tracks
right around here, but yeah, those were some train tracks that we just crossed over. And then this part gets a little bit bumpier, and then it kind of smooths out once you get past here.
Yeah. The tracks are covered up on race day with rubber mats, so they're not a hazard. But if you do come and ride this before race day, just slow down and be really careful. They're really rough. You've already seen about 30 dump trucks. There's a sand and gravel supply place back there, and this is the only way to get back to the main interstate. So this little section is just run over with trucks, and that's why it's so rough and beat up. But it's only for about a mile that it's rough, and then it gets into much smoother road. On race day, this is pretty much shut down, even coming back in. So you can avoid a lot of these potholes. You don't have to just stay in the far right and hit them
are going to pre-ride the course before, we would probably recommend as early as possible as far as down here traffic-wise. Just like he was saying, there are a lot of trucks, but if you can get down here earlier, the traffic is a lot better.
Yeah, earlier in the day.
Yeah.
Especially like on a Sunday. And a lot of people ride Saturday, run Sunday. If you do it backwards, the weekend is still less traffic, but like Sunday morning, there's hardly anyone down here.
And it looks pretty dead and dull right now, but I promise it's actually pretty when the trees are actually bloomed.
Yes.
So there is some sights to see. And the river looks really pretty when you get up here a little ways, but you may not be able to see it on the video.
And the river is not that bad to swim in. There's no monsters. It's better than most lakes you've been in. It is a river, it's not an ocean, so it's not that clear, but it's really not that bad.
I still think there's monsters, but we're just going to pretend like that doesn't happen.
There's no monsters.
There's monsters. There's catfish the size of cars. So I've heard. But I've never seen it.
So the first 11 miles of this course, and then coming back in, the last 10, 11 are pancake flat. The other 90 miles is hard. But you get a warm up and cool down.
And depending on weather, the year that I did it, it was really, really perfect weather actually for the majority of the day. But my feet were cold, so just a tip there if you get cold feet. Because feet probably didn't really warm up till mile like 70. And then I'm like, oh, I feel my toes again. This is great.
In 15 and 16, the weather that morning was about 48 for the swim start. We were heading out on the bike around 52, 54. Sun was coming up. We were both in, it was a standard short sleeve tri-kit, normal shoes. I was actually pretty warm, but I tend to go way too hard on the bike and blow up on the run like most guys do in the triathlete world. My feet were fine, but if you're not used to the cold weather or anything around 50, 60 degrees, bring some extra clothes. And this past year, in 17 when I did it, it was actually the opposite. Race morning was about 76 degrees, and then we finished the day, it was about 48. So it got progressively colder, and the bike was pretty rough. It was really windy, it rained some. So it's just kind of a crapshoot in October in Kentucky. So this is a good view of the river. It's one of the actually better views of the river. You can kind of see one of our new bridges is on the left. It'd be nice if the dump truck wasn't in the way.
I was just about to say that.
It's really pretty in Kentucky. It's a nice blue dump truck.
I mean, drafting-wise, if you could just get a dump truck on race day,
there you go.
It could be good stuff.
Just watch the officials.
That might draw some penalties.
I know personally, I think this whole time coming out on race day, you're still kind of transitioning your mind from the swim to the bike, and I'm personally not paying a whole lot of attention through here. You're just kind of pedaling, it's flat, you're getting used to it, you're still wet. So it's a good warm-up area for that. It's not technical or hard. You just follow this road out. Generally there's a photographer around mile 3 or 4. I have been the last 3 years anyway. So they get some good pictures of you not paying attention.
it's in the beginning, so you at least look, hopefully, reasonably like you're not completely dying. So if you can see him, you can get a good photo op.
Yeah.
And as you can tell, we're still pretty flat. Got a couple more miles of that, and then we'll hit some hills.
First hill is around mile 11, 12-ish. The course is, you're going to get an extra little bit more mileage in the course than if you come by and just ride it for giggles, because generally you don't start on a great long, because there's no any parking. On race day, there is parking around. It's on a Sunday, so you can street park for free. There's also some lots that are around $10 for the day. I literally drive down from my house and park on the street, and walk 200 feet, and I'm in transition. And you'll see all kinds of different paces, no matter where you are in the swim, because there's always someone going out way too hard or going out a little too slow. So you'll get past, and you'll pass people, and you'll usually see them again towards the end of the day.
And there were just some horses on our left, so if there's any horse fans, I'm sure if you were coming to the Louisville Ironman, you were expecting some horses. So they have their little jackets on right now, but they should be in full force once it's a little warmer.
And it really is much more attractive when it's
Yes.
not January 29th.
Usually October's a little bit before the leaves are fully turned, but it's usually still pretty down here.
Coming up on the first small turn. If you ride this not on race day, there is a stop sign up here. I would encourage you to stop at. On race day, you can just go right through it. They'll have the other course marked, but the other road closed. So you kind of just veer to the left. It's not really even a turn, it's more like a curve. Oh, good, he's getting out of the way. The old course actually used to go up that hill in 2012-ish, 13, and they fixed the bridge, so you actually go this way now. But literally, you climbed up that hill, and then you turn and went right back down it to get across this little part of the river up here. It was not much fun. There's a little bit of a bump on this bridge, so it's not bad, but there's a little bit of a bump there.
Bump.
This is the 2017 course, which is actually going to be the same course as the 16 course. In 15, it was different in a couple of places. So if they do change it, we can update and let you know. As of right now, we're going to use the same course as 16 and 17. It's actually a mile and a half short. So from transition to transition, it's 110 and a half miles. Exactly.
But we won't hold it against your 140.6.
You just make your average a little higher. On the way back in, and I'll mention this on the way back in, there's actually an aid station right here. You will pass it. We'll be setting up when you go out, but that's the last aid station of the day, right there. This is Prospect. It's a cute little town. You won't get to see a whole lot of it. Most of it's to our right. You kind of get to go through it. And this is the next turn. So we're actually turning off River Road onto Brownsboro Road or US 42. And you're on 42 a lot over the day. So you make a left here. Again, on race day, you don't have to stop for this light.
And once we make our left, just for if you are pre-riding before race day, this is a bit of a busy stretch right here. So just make sure that you're careful. I think the speed limit's 50 or 45 here. So just make sure that you're careful if you are riding this before race day. And there's, for whatever reason, and you may be able to notice it in the video when we take a left, there's like a bump in the road every, I don't know, I'd say 25, 50 feet, where I don't know if it's phone lines, you might know better than me, but
it's for drainage that's bumped up.
There you go. So it's more annoying than necessarily hazardous, but just to...
This is honestly the worst part of the entire course, is this like mile up through here. If you ride in the morning, you're going out, there's not a lot of traffic, you're fine. Coming back in around noon, 1, 2 o'clock, there's church traffic on Sundays, it's just busy. You just really want to get off of this road. But you can see it's just there's bumps, there's one there, there's these little black lines. They're not big holes, they're just annoying, especially if you're in the arrow position and it's kind of bump you. Also, for this section on race day, they generally put all the traffic on one side and bikes on the other, so traffic can still get through here. So like last year we were actually headed out, but on the far left lane. So it can get congested because there's cars and bikes. And then there's the first hill's coming up, so that congests things more. This is the first hill, and it can bite, especially you're used to going flat. You've been doing half an hour on flat ground, and you get to a hill. It's congested. There's a lot of folks, trying to either power through it or granny over it. The proper approach is somewhere in the middle, but it'll get your heart rate up. And then that begins about 200 feet of climbing in the next 90 miles. There's nothing big. There's no walls. It's just up and down the entire time. And then we'll go from 4 lanes to 2 lanes. There are 2 Food Mart convenience store gas stations on the loop, or the circle part. Pretty much the ones we just passed are your last ones early on, if you need supplies. There's quite a bit of traffic out there.
Speaking of food, we both really love to eat. So if you do come in Louisville is an awesome foodie town, so we have a ton of restaurants. So if you're, spending hopefully your whole weekend here, or even a little bit longer, we do have a lot to see and a lot to eat. So we would be happy to help you guys in that department. I won't tell you now because you'll never remember, and I'll make myself really hungry. But if you come see us, we'll be happy to point you in the right direction. So many directions.
Louisville's a really good food town. We don't have a lot of chains here, other than some of the big ones. We have a lot of really good local chefs that just have what they do. They do it really, really well. And we have healthy options. We have very, very unhealthy options. Really, whatever you want. And it's kind of a unique place. You wouldn't think of Louisville, Kentucky as having that kind of culture, but we really do. There's a horse on the right with his coat on. This is some of the more beautiful parts of the whole state that we're kind of going through. So we're leaving Jefferson County soon. We'll be into Oldham County. There's a lot of money out here, a lot of horses, a lot of nice houses. Get tired of the hills, just remember the run course is a pancake. The biggest hill is you go under a pair of railroad tracks and you go back up. It may be 20 feet.
It looks a lot bigger than it really is when you've been running on flat all day, but it really is not a big hill.
So you can kind of already see it's up and down, up and down. There's nothing big. If you're good at carrying momentum down, you can really get to rolling through these. It is a fast course in terms of, there's nothing to really slow you down, but it does take a lot of sustained power to keep it going. We're all used to it around here because this whole region is set up this way, and we're just used to riding on it. We both did a very flat century, about 600 feet of climbing in the whole century last year, but we were both hurting really bad because we weren't used to pedaling like that for 5 hours. We never had anywhere to train like that.
Yeah.
So if you are in a really flat place and you come do this, and if you can put down, if you don't coast for 5 hours, you can come here because you can coast down a lot of these hills. And you can kind of recover and then basically push up, recover, push up, repeat all day. This is Goshen. You won't even know you were in Goshen. You just went through Goshen.
And you're probably at this point starting to get a little more spread out with as far as other competitors on the course, kind of getting in your own rhythm. You'll have a lot of hopefully you'll make some friends over the day. I know that always helps me. People, you'll pass them on a hill, then they'll pass you, then you'll pass them. Kind of makes the day go by a little faster.
Oh, hey, it's you again.
Right. Oh,
I just passed you and you're back. Are you going faster or am I going slower?
Really messes with your mind. And hopefully you're eating and drinking.
Yes.
At this point, it is, I know we talked about weather earlier. No matter the weather, you want to be hydrating properly, but especially if it is going to be on the hotter side that day, which, it can be. I don't know. We've been pretty lucky with the last couple years, but October here, you really don't know, and it could be 80s.
Yeah. The joke in Kentucky is if you don't like the weather, just wait a day, it'll change. It's completely true. It could snow or it could be 85. We would not be surprised. The average is, a low of 50, high of 70. This past year, it stormed really bad during the afternoon and got down to the 50s. But we don't know.
Yeah, it's all over the place. a weather watcher, so, you know, a week out from the race, I'll be like a hawk watching my Apple weather and watching it change, and it will change. So don't a week out look and see a rain cloud and think it's going to be a terrible day, because it really, I mean, up until the day before, it could vastly change. And even I think the year that I did it, so 16, we actually went down to check our bikes and everything, and we looked at the river, and it was awful. I mean, I'm talking, you know, very, very choppy. It was windy, and it kind of got in my head a little bit. And then we went down there the next day, and it was perfectly flat. So don't let any of that freak you out either, because you really just never know.
This past year, all the extended forecasts were calling for rain all day on race day, and to the point I was even considering, you know, changing my bike setup and gear. And then on really Saturday afternoon, it switched and changed to where it was going to be fine, and it ended up raining for maybe an hour on the bike course. It was windy and stormy that day. But
Yeah.
So this is actually the old out and back 1694. On the left's a great place to park. The Silo Church. They're very, very open to Ironman triathletes, which is a lot of businesses are, but they really are. You can park there and drive out and do the loop 1 or 2 times, and you can bypass all the congestion of Louisville in those first 15 miles. If you're just looking to come out and get some miles in and train on the harder part of the course. The out and back they took out in 2016, so it was in 15 all the previous years, but it was a really dangerous out and back. It was really hilly and narrow, and it was challenging, but it just wasn't safe. There was always people having wrecks there. For me personally, when I'm coming back in for the day, when I see the church and I'm coming in from the church, it's pretty much downhill from that point. You don't really have any big climbs left. It's just a little mental victory that when you get to that point, most of your work on the bike's done. You just got to ride it in. It's similar to what Al was talking about with drinking. I know I forget to drink if it's chilly out. Don't. If it is your first time, or if you struggle with that too, make sure you drink enough on race day.
That was a fun corn painted truck, if that came into your view.
If you're not used to seeing propane trucks, that's what that was.
Painted like corn cobs. Yeah, definitely hydrate, regardless of the weather. And another thing that I just thought of, just because it's not something that I would have thought of, I know last year Mike had, I think it was either a long sleeve shirt or a jacket that he put in his bag for the run, because like you said, the weather actually got colder, and I think that was a very smart move, and not, you just typically don't, you think of it's colder in the morning, it gets warmer, but make sure that you do pay attention to that, because I was spectating last year and I was very cold, so I know, coming off of the swim and into that, and then if it gets colder on the run, you're sweaty, and then the temperature starts dropping, it can get chilly, so
we're on Eastern time, and we do observe daylight savings time, so for generally the middle of October, it's going to get dark around 7, and when if the sun is out, when the sun goes down, it does get chilly, even if it is a beautiful day, it will get cold, so if you're above a 12-hour finish, you're going to be in the dark when you finish, and it gets cold. So we'll do a run video later on, and we'll talk about the bike special needs up here as well. If you do need to change gear or drop gear off, it's actually coming up in about 6 miles. So this is the next turn. So this actually starts the loop. So we've been heading straight out from town the whole time. So we'll turn right on this road, and then we'll do, on the race day, you'll do 2 circles. Today, we're not doing the second circle, because that's a little redundant.
We would love for you guys to listen to us for 2 full circles, but you probably don't want that, so just 1 circle.
Just put us on repeat, just a little bit. So 393 is an interesting road. It has your longest climb of the day on it, and it has some nice downhills too if you're into that. This is one of them here. You can get a lot of speed up on this road and keep it going. As far as gearing options, people ask me all the time. Personally, I think a 5236 with an 1128 is ideal, unless you're either very, very weak or very, very strong. You could go to a compact or a 5339. But definitely the 1128 in the back will give you some good ranges for this. But by no means do you feel like you have to have. You'll be able to finish whatever you need, or whatever you have, rather. And this is a very, very nice long downhill. Generally speaking, a lot of these you can hit around 45, 46 pretty easily if you want to. You don't have to. Depends on how much you weigh too. I'm around 200 pounds.
I was going to say, I might not hit 45.
Al's more like 130. It just depends on how fast you want to go. But none of the, like when you're going, there's no challenging downhills or technical turns. Like you come down the hill, it's just straight, and you hit this bridge, it's very smooth.
Yeah, there isn't much.
And then you just go right back. You got to go up what you just came down. This is probably the longest climb of the day. As far as length, it's not terribly hard, but there's always people at this driveway cheering.
I know, I might have blacked this section out. You just never know.
And it's still going to be congested. So just be careful.
And I know it looks pretty rural where we are, but there's a decent amount of spectators. Obviously, there's going to be a lot more downtown, and at the finish, we have a really cool finish because it does finish in 4th Street Live in the downtown area. But there are certain blocks of out here where there will be a lot of spectators, and we'll kind of point some of that out. But so I know it does look very rural, and it looks like it's just you and a few cows and a few horses, but there are a lot of spectators.
And there's a lot of homes too, and some businesses. And if you come out and say you have a problem or an issue, just ask. People around here are very, very friendly. There's also some people on top of this hill cheering as well. There's usually some music. And we're close to a lot of little towns, I mean, in the interstate, so it's not...
Yeah, it's not as rural as it probably looks on the film right now, because I think most of in your view is trees and fields.
Dead trees and
dead trees, dead grass, dead leaves.
As far as elevation is concerned, generally Louisville sets around 450. Your highest point of the day is going to be around 900. So there's not it's not very high or low. You just go up and down a lot. And there's a current in the river. Especially last year, there was quite a bit of current.
you basically jump in. So what I was talking about earlier, where you jump off of that dock, you're sort of in a channel between an island and then the bank. So you're basically swimming down through that channel and then out and around that island and into sort of the main river. So the current does kind of change with that turn. So just know that.
So we're getting ready to come up on, I forget the name of the high school. It's a high school, and this is going to be your first big aid station. Is also going to be bike special needs. I believe they limit it to the second lap, if I'm right. And that'll be up here in this big parking lot on the right. There's also trash before and after aid stations, being like pro bottles, but all your special needs will be on this big parking lot to the right.
Yep. I think it's, yeah.
So you do have, if you do need it, you actually have to pull your bike in, yell out your number, they'll hand it to you, and then pull back out. You can't just keep pedaling and grab it. Your aid stations, of course, you can grab Gatorade, water, bars, whatever you need.
Yeah.
And it does, again, it gets very congested there.
Mm-hmm.
And you always have someone going from the far left to the right to grab something and cut you off.
And I would say that's totally, I know I didn't stop, but I think, there's a lot of things that you can put in that bag that might be very, very important in that moment. So I wouldn't hesitate to stop if you are having issues. Maybe I know some people change their socks. If like they're still, if they've gotten really sweaty or wet from the transition from the swim, some nutrition stuff.
There's also a convenience store back there by that red light where we turn left if you need to stop and get something on like a training day. That's one of the two stores you can really stop at easily. Some folks will wear, because they are kind of concerned about the cold, they'll wear like an extra jacket or something over. You can also dispose of that stuff at the stations. There's a trash area. So if you want to stop and pull something off and just discard it, you won't get it back, but you can get rid of it.
Yeah. Arm warmers, I think, are pretty popular just because you can take them off, stuff them back in your pocket.
As far as headwind, it's a complete crapshoot. I've rode this course with the wind going in every direction. As far as race day, there's no telling. Generally, you do have a tailwind coming out. Generally, but not always. And this is the women's prison on the left. Just ignore that. It has a nice rock wall around it, though. Yeah. It looks very stylish.
And make sure you're careful at aid stations with those. I know the year I did it, and I believe last year, I think they usually have them. They have those big, the Gatorade endurance bottles.
Yes.
And they're very large, and so a lot of people will take one, drink a little bit, and throw it. And they bounce a lot, and I know I ran over one on race day and almost lost it, but luckily it was open, so it compressed when I ran over it. I think another girl that we ride with last year wasn't so lucky, and she had a wreck because of something similar with a bottle. So just make sure when it is congested like that you're very, very careful.
Yes.
People throwing things.
Not only just careful of what's on the road, but also if you can dispose of a bottle, make sure and throw it like over in the ditch.
Yeah, like way overthrow. Because I've seen them. I mean, they bounce
see one, you have to almost hop it. If you have to hit it, hop it. If you hit it at an angle, you're going to go down.
Yeah. Ironman's hard enough without giant bottles of Gatorade careening toward your head, so try to avoid.
This is LaGrange. LaGrange is a pretty special place on the course because there's I believe Ironman calls it their viewing party. Basically, the main part of the town is boarded off. They bus spectators out. So if you have spectators wanting to come out, family, friends, they'll actually bring them out here via bus. You can also drive out here pretty easily. There's always several hundred folks lining the streets up here. It's pretty flat. It's a really good motivational boost. And it gives you something to look forward to because it can be a little lonely out here. And that's a little bit further up here. That'll start.
Yes, it is nice.
It's the middle of the day here right now, so kids are coming out. It's 2:02.
Did you say the shuttle?
Yeah, they shuttle folks out here.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly where the shuttle starts. I know it's downtown.
Yeah.
I know the guy that runs it. He's a great dude, Andy Murphy. He's also the president of Louisville Bicycle Club. He kind of heads it up and organizes it. But they're just school buses that bring folks out here.
Yeah. And it just depends on your family. I know mine. I know families want to see you as much as they can. My parents came out here and watched me, but like my husband stayed around because he didn't want to miss other things. So I would say that that's just up to you and just for
really
what to tell your
just up through
family
here.
and their timing. Yes, right through here is where.
Is the main. There's basically they have like barricades on each side. People can hit the banners. It's really loud. LaGrange is also a cool town. There's some restaurants. It's a very kind of small town. There's railroad tracks going right through it. I know my mom really likes to come up here and just kind of shop and eat. This red light on race day, you just go through it. And they have about an hour and a half to get out of here. We're around mile 30 or so in the course. And then on the second loop, you're 65 or so, something like that. I haven't rode it since October, so I'm a little rusty on mileage. Generally, you do it in October, you're like, I'm not doing that again for a while.
I haven't ridden it in a while. And we're opposites. He would rather ride the course multiple times. I would rather be surprised. I like the adventure portion, so anytime I go, and I've done a few half Ironman races in other places, and I like to know nothing about the course, and it's all a surprise for me. I barely even look at the map.
She's not your typical type A triathlete. Just ignore her.
Hey, I said we were opposite. There's got to be more people like me out there.
Most people, 99% of the triathletes are like you.
If you're watching this video, I'm going to need you to comment below it and tell me that you're like me so I don't feel like I'm alone. Because it's just me who thinks it's an adventure.
If you made it this far and you don't care, I'm wondering what you're doing with your life.
It's not that I don't care, but that's part of the fun. It's a new place you've never ridden.
The downside with LaGrange, it kind of gets you pumped up, and then it's just this again. You're like, oh, okay, we're alone again. Like, oh, I have 30-something miles to go before I can get back to the party. You're like, well, that was nice.
And this it does get a little harder in this section on your second lap. I think is when it starts to hit you. You know how far you're going.
So we'll turn up here on Old Ballard School Road. That's the hardest part of the course. It doesn't flow. This part, because there isn't really any steep hills or sharp turns, it does flow pretty well, so you can keep momentum going. When you get off of these roads and you use a couple little side roads, or you go through a residential area, it just doesn't flow, and you just really have to push through it. And really, there's parts like that most people have questions about, or that is nice to know about. If the whole course was just like this, flowy 2-lane road, it doesn't necessarily take a lot of skill to ride that as far as to ride it well. You just ride what's in front of you. You can see everything. But up here, if you go down a long downhill, there's a corner and there's a bridge. It's just nice to know that's there. The first aid station is back by the high school and special needs.
Yeah.
And then you don't have one in the first part of the course because I guess they're assuming you're coming out fresh. You just had one in transition.
Yeah.
After that, they're pretty plentiful on the course. But you can rely on them pretty easily. Folks like to really know exactly what point they're going to have a certain their nutrition at, and we'll comment on exact mileage. I'll tell you where they are. I don't remember off the top of my head the exact mile point of each one. This is another long downhill. You actually have to turn at the bottom of this hill. You have plenty of time to do that, but you do have to turn. There's always some guy standing on the road with the look of death on his face, and he's going to get run over. Because you always have someone like me that waits till the last minute to stop because it's to save 2 seconds. And if you pre-ride this, there's not going to be one here. The easiest way to remember is long downhill. Don't cross this bridge. Don't go into Henry County. It's the road right before it. Turn left. It's Ballard School Road. And so begins the suck part of the course. Just to put it out there.
Yeah.
Personally, I take this whole section as I'm just going to get through this and not blow myself up. If you try to really push through it, it takes a lot of energy. Mm-hmm. And you don't necessarily gain a lot of time.
Yeah. You'll probably see your average go down during this part, so it is a little bit demoralizing when you've worked really, really hard. But if you think about it, you went through the whole flat portion at the start, and then, like you said, you do have a lot of momentum, even though there are some sort of rolling hills, as people like to call them. But this part really just takes away a lot of that momentum. So your average will go back up.
Yes.
Once you get off of this part, but just so that you're prepared for that, you will see that.
Yeah, don't chase your average.
Yeah.
Whatever that number is, don't try to I'm losing. You will gain that back, especially when you come back in on the second loop. Pretty much mile 80 to the finish is a fast section. So even when we come out here on training rides, we can easily gain a mile an hour average just from that mile 80 on in, because of how it flows. It's a lot of downhill sections, so don't let this worry. You will drop on this section.
Yeah.
And this is the second little climb here. We just went up one back there. Generally, we're both pretty strong cyclists. We're generally in our lowest gear, and next to the lowest gear climbing these. They're steeper than they look. And you just can't get any momentum of running start. And literally as soon as you go up, you go right back down. At the bottom of this hill, there's kind of a turn and there's a bridge. You can take it pretty fast. I always hop the bridge because there is a little bit of a lip to it. As soon as you get past the bridge, it's the steepest section of the course. It's not very long, 50 feet, but it's straight up. So you kind of have to prepare for that. I know it's here and I've rode it enough. I know how to take it and I can gear it to get up, but a lot of folks will miss a gear or won't shift properly. And you can even still see some of the red paint on the bridge where that lip is. It's so short that you just hoop it. And then as soon as you get over it, you're like, oh.
Yeah.
It's just this little section right here, really to about this next drive that's really steep. But if you don't hit it right, if you get stuck on it, if you're still in the, you're still in the big ring and you go up to pedal, you won't be able to get over it. And you'll have to stop, get off, walk, remount. And you have to do that twice.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate part about the loop. And you will, like I said, you will see your average going down, but everyone else around you, because you kind of, in that moment, you feel like it's only you, and why am I going so much slower and all that, but then you look around and you start to see those same people, like I said, that you've been passing the whole time or that have been passing you, and they're right there with you, because it kind of feels like, oh, am I the only one who thinks this part's that hard? But it's not just you.
And even in the day, you can kind of see the leaves blowing. The wind is just really random. What fronts here when? So you're gonna have you will have headwind at some point on the day. It may be on the way in or way out, and it pretty much evens out. Then you get to go downhill again. At the bottom of this hill, you make a very slight left. There is a stop sign. We'll stop for that today. On race day, you don't have to stop, and you can make this turn at full speed, assuming there isn't someone around you slowing down because they don't know what to expect, which happened to be last year, and I went and punched someone. There's a guy basically standing here in his truck directing traffic, and a lot of people will slow down or stop to see because they think something's wrong, and nothing's wrong. He's just making sure everyone's safe. There's a car coming. I'm waiting for. Never mind. They're going really slow. So you turn left and you go back out. If you're on a race that you can just keep rolling through that. It's not a big deal. And if you keep up enough, well, I guess they're in a hurry. Jeez.
They weren't in a hurry a minute ago.
If you keep enough momentum off of that, you can get up this hill from that momentum. Otherwise, it kind of hurts because it's short and steep. Make this wide on race day too. Go in the left lane, take this whole turn. It's a pretty sharp turn, but it's not a big deal. Make that. This is more of a residential section up through here. This is another really long climb that doesn't, even in person, doesn't look steep. It is. It's long and very annoying.
There's our friend again. Not sure. I think he'd
just like race day, you get past and you pass.
Yeah. You speed up and you slow down.
a lot of this through here is mental, like I was talking about. Everyone does the same course. Everyone's struggling this the same. It just feels like you're going so much slower, and that's the difficult part.
And I was trying to think mileage-wise, because this part on the second loop, you're around.
On the second loop right here, you're in the 70s.
70s, yeah, because that's what I was going to say. That's just personally for me where it started. I really started to feel it. And, where I kind of needed a little bit more nutrition at that point, needed to manage that part a little bit better. I just kind of remember that's where I really personally started.
This is a really short out and back. Basically, you'll turn right there. Up through here is your trash station, the turnaround, some music, and your next aid station is here as well. Of course, on both loops. The turnaround is generally, the last 2 years has been basically right where this gate is, which is where we're going to turn around today. When you make the turn, your aid station is on your right. And then you also get to see all your friends, to see who's either catching you or who you passed.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're like, oh, they're catching me, and you have to go harder. But it's very congested, all joking aside, because you have bikes going both ways in this little road.
Yeah. And you're trying
you have
to do
people
that
throwing trash and bottles.
narrow-ish turnaround.
And it is a 180 on the road. It can be slippery there. So just make sure you can turn your bike around and be confident and safe about that. And you will do that twice. And there's road we just came up. I like that porch. That wasn't built last
It's a
year.
very pretty house. It looks like a beach house.
And then you get to go down this really nice hill.
And I'm not sure, I was trying to remember from here where the next aid station was, because I just, again, and this is just personal, anecdotal kind of stuff, I think I didn't fill up as well as I should have at that last one, and then it was, because you're into the 70s and getting into the 80s, you need a lot more energy, and I personally needed some more than I had, so.
The next one's on the Spirit Parkway, so it's not too far between these two.
And it may have just in my head felt a lot further than it really was.
We'll call that out when we get there.
Yeah.
This is this little section through here is probably the prettiest section of the day. A lot of false flats. It's very hard to, you don't realize it in the moment, but you're like, oh, that's why I'm going 12 miles an hour. Times there are horses out up through here too. I know a lot of folks come in, and generally if you stop and go up to the fence, they'll come over, and if you want to say hi. Most folks are pretty friendly through here.
Coyote already. Or a scary looking dog. Yeah, I'm always the one that stops and tries to get the animals to come see me. I pet a cow on a ride a few weeks ago, and it was a dream come true.
You can tell who grew up in the country between the two of us.
If you carry sugar cubes in your pocket, the horses and other animals will really like you.
Yeah, nutrition.
So if you're not that concerned with your time or your nutrition or really just, any of that, just, stop off. Make sure you make the cutoff, but pet some horses. Take some horse selfies.
Don't carry your phone with you to race day. Don't tell anyone, at
Yeah,
least.
just kidding.
We do not authorize that.
It always amazed me, though, the marathon I did, there were so many people that just had their phone. They were taking pictures with goats and just multiple selfies. I was like, this is an event.
And we turn left here.
But yeah, Ironman's not really made for that.
So we're on this road maybe a mile and a half or so. This little section is pretty chopped up. The rest of the course is pretty easy. This little section is chopped up. As soon as you go down this hill, you got to go right back up. And this little section is really steep, especially this on the top here. Again, there's always someone that didn't shift right, stops in the middle of the road. Someone has their head down and then almost hits them, and then they go in the ditch and then they fall over. Every year. It's this little section from right here to the top is really steep. And you really just have to kind of pay attention, really. And it's downshift. But then you get to go down. This is another downhill that looks sketchy, and it's really not. You just can't see around this really long corner, but it is straight and smooth. And this bridge is smooth as well. If you do pre-ride, this is probably the hardest turn to remember and to see. They tried to be cute and put the street signs on the opposite side of the road from the streets, and it's very annoying. And if you keep going straight, you actually get back on the course. You just don't ride in the right way. But it is right up here. It is on the right. And the street sign is to the left, even though it's to the right. Spirit Park. I've even had folks that I've rode with that have done this race and have still missed that turn. On race day, you won't miss it. They'll funnel you this way. But on
He's
pre-rides,
probably talking about me. Because that's
Paul,
absolutely
actually.
something that I would do.
Paul did it, and I had to go chase him.
Oh, I would absolutely do that.
I'm like, oh, it's just riding. I didn't know.
I've done this, and I'm still looking around like, oh, that's new. That's probably not new.
There is also an aid station right up here on top of this hill, which seems kind of random because you kind of just had one, but they do one here. So if you need a refill.
So this may have been the one that I was thinking of then after this side. Because I feel like pretty much after this point, maybe a few more miles ahead, you start to get that feeling where even if you're not a runner, you
It's
really
right
just
here,
want to do something other than be on your bike, which is an interesting feeling when you're not that into the run portion, but you start to get that feeling like, I really just want to do something else. I just want to get off of this bike.
Yes.
So we're not far from that point, which is, I do have mixed feelings about that, because then you kind of remember that you now have to run a marathon, but it seems better than still being on your bike. So.
And on the second loop, we're around mile 77 right now. I mean, you put in a good day's work already, and you're just getting through the second time around, the hard part, and you kind of just want to be done with it. This road's kind of bumpy. I always get very just annoyed through here every time I either practice it or race it. I don't want to be on the bike anymore, like you said.
Yeah.
But once we get off this road up here, you get back on a main road. It's smoother, it flows. And really, it's just this middle section of about 8 or 9 miles that really just takes it out of it. The rest of it's pretty easy, relatively speaking. We both come from cycling backgrounds. We like harder rides more so than I pretty much can't swim for my life. We both hate running, but for some reason we do triathlon.
Yeah, I had a love-hate relationship with running, but it's starting to lean more toward the hate scenario. So we'll see. I'll try to rekindle that.
We're taking a break.
But we are both doing it this year. Now, how much we will run before, that's up for debate.
There's also always a big kind of a party here. I know some of the Cincinnati guys come down. Here's always a guy in a kilt. There's a guy with a sword, like a pirate person. There's always loud. To me, it's kind of a little celebration. You made it through the suck. Now go out and actually ride your bike.
Mm-hmm. And I did the year that I did it, and this could have just been timing, but there were a few cars on this road that were sort of mixed in with us, and it got, kind of where they're going so slow, it wasn't like a safety, I wasn't worried about safety, but it was like I needed to pass the car, and they were kind of trying to pass me, so that's kind of a weird spot. That can happen.
All 3 years I've done this, I have passed a car on my bike.
Yeah, I passed a car right there. I was like, I can't wait anymore.
The main road like this here, where it's 2-lane, there's not a lot of folks on it, and it's mostly closed. But say you live on it and you need to get out from like where you live, you will find some cars on it, and they're not going. They're trying not to be in the way. There's no amount of intent there, but sometimes, if they're following a slower cyclist, you have to actually pass the whole car. It's not ideal. It generally only happens 1 or 2 times over the whole course, but it can happen. If it does happen, don't get super mad at the car. They can't zoom around 100 different cyclists and be in the wrong lane. They're just going to take it slow and try to be safe. If you're going faster than them, just pass them.
Yeah. And they're trying to be careful, and I think a lot of times not realizing how fast we're actually going on a bike.
So once you make that turn, you got a couple of miles up here back to your own 42. There's also a convenience store. It's one I always stop at. It just works well for the way timing works. It is a very, very podunk store, even by Kentucky standards. They're generally pretty nice, but just be very courteous, and I always try to tip them a little bit and just make sure that they don't hate cyclists too much, because there's a lot of folks that come ride this course in the fall. And it's that little place right there. There's some picnic tables and restrooms out there. And then now you're back on 42, which is the road you were on earlier. So now you're almost completed the loop. This road flows really well. It's smooth. And basically when you make that turn, you're at mile 80 for the day. So you just have to get back into town.
Yeah, and we just passed a Louisville 33 miles away sign. So gauge where we are.
So on the second loop, you will literally be on this road all the way back to River Road, and then you're on River Road home. You're on 2 roads left. On the first loop, you have to basically turn left to get on 393 and loop again. But to me, like, mental victory for me is when I make that turn. I know all the work for the day is done.
Yeah.
was a bad headwind all the way in. In 17, it stormed with 40-mile-an-hour crosswinds on the way in. In 16, it was perfect. So
Because
maybe it's every other year in, or this one Al doesn't. The weather's perfect.
Yeah. So you're welcome, everyone, for 2018.
The turn on the Spirit Parkway earlier when I was commenting, you actually come out right there. It's not the end of the world, but if you want to do the course properly, you have to make that turn. And generally, we mentioned earlier about congestion. Especially in the second loop by this point, there's people around you, but you're pretty spread out. You're not really passing anyone. You're not being passed. Everyone's kind of in their position for the day, and all that's over. You're just kind of riding. I've always had at least one person I go back and forth with, because they may be a little faster climber, and I may be a faster descenter, or on flats, and we'll go back and forth. But it's generally pretty chill by this point.
Yeah. I tend to always have someone like that because I'm generally a faster climber, and then there's people who are sometimes faster than me on the flats.
Yes.
And I usually talk to them and see what kind of run they're going to do. My person from 16, she was projecting a much faster run than me, so I was like, oh, okay, well, it's been nice riding with you. I won't see you again. And I don't think I did.
Did you do like a 320? Did you tell me that?
Me? She? Her?
Yeah.
Yeah, she was gunning for something sub 4, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm out for that, so it's nice knowing you.
Both of mine the last 2 years are similar. I didn't really get a chance to talk to them a whole lot. I looked up their run off their bib number when I finished, and they both went like 320. And I'm like, cool. I'm willing to stick to my 5 hours.
I'm Facebook friends with mine.
Who are you? I'm not a Facebook friend of mine. So I guess if you see Al on the course and you all talk about your run, you can be Facebook friends.
Mm-hmm. We can be real friends too, but definitely Facebook friends.
Get you some Strava followers. Get some kudos.
And if anybody, I know people will be interested in riding the course. If you are interested in coming in, feel free to reach out to us. Once we get this video posted and everything, we'll put all of our contact information, because we'd be happy to see if we could coordinate with you. We both need to train for this ride too.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we're going to do a lot of, we don't know dates yet because it's still January. We'll do a lot of shop rides this year and other years as we go forward. Sponsored rides from the shop on Saturdays and Sundays too. We have friends from out of town that come in and do it. We do it. A lot of our own team does it. And it's just a lot easier and really just more fun as a group. You're going to come out and ride, and it's a little bit safer too.
yeah. And then we can go eat food and,
Yes.
somewhere delicious.
And there's not a whole lot to comment on. It's a road that goes up and down. It's smooth.
This is a nice little downhill. And even if it's, because I think we just said the high in 16 was like 76.
Yeah, it was
something in
mid,
there.
like 72, 74.
Yeah,
but sunny.
Yeah, I was gonna say I would still recommend sunscreen if you are a person
Yes.
who gets burnt. I had shaved my head that year for St. Baldrick's Day, and it had probably never seen the sun in its life, and it was very burnt and very painful. So even though it's not insanely hot, I would still definitely recommend, because it just takes a lot of energy out of you to be, in the sun like that, especially if you're actively getting sunburn.
Yes. Because even, if you're a quote-unquote good cyclist, you're still going to be out here, even on this course, 6-ish hours. We both went, like 5:40 last year. But still, even at that, even if you're a great cyclist, you're out here 5 hours. That's 5 hours in the sun. And you still have to go run in it. It doesn't really work after the fact. Some folks ask me about wheels. A disc wheel is still going to be faster out here. It's not that hilly or that windy. If you have that option, don't feel like you need to have that option. Al is on a set of 606 zips. I'm on a pair of NB wheels about 80 millimeters deep, similar to a Zip 808. Most folks are on a 40, 50, 60 millimeter deep wheel. Don't feel like you have to have those. A lot of folks don't. Another aid station is right here, which is really random, but there is an aid station here. There's also a rumble strip in the middle of the road. Basically, to keep, if you are going that way, kind of probably hear it. That is not much fun when you're on a bike. And wow, okay. People are in a hurry. I'm doing 65. Jeez.
It's 2:30 on a Monday.
It's 2:30 on a Monday, folks.
Stuff to do.
On the aid station where it does get busy, and you want to go around people, and you hit that, just be really cautious. If you do go over it, get over it. Don't very slowly meander and get on it, and you get bumpy and fall. Because especially on the second loop, you're in the 80s by that point, there's always someone that didn't do something right, and they're going to unclip in the middle of the road and just stand there, and then someone's going to go really slow and almost fall.
I think I saw that there last year, because I think that's where I accidentally ate a caffeinated gel.
Don't eat caffeinated gels if you have a sensitive stomach.
If you don't ever eat caffeinated gels, especially.
Apparently, Al had some issues with
hey, I made it.
Gel.
I made it. But I was wheeling into Louisville like, whoop, I don't know. Don't know if I'm going to make it. I did. And they're very, once you get in, if this is your first Ironman, I know it's, like this at most places, but they are very helpful in the transition tents, as far as, someone's literally sitting there with you, helping you do whatever you need to do. So that's always nice to know that you have some help.
If you need help changing, if you need, just about frank, you need something rubbed on something, if you need, they usually something to hold it, they would put your shoes on, whatever you need, they'll do. Some folks want no help, some folks want to do everything.
I think I had her sit there just in case I needed her. She was more like a crutch. Okay, I think I'm good, but don't move in case I need you.
What's always worked well for me is because you have your wetsuit, just assuming you wear one, that has to go back in your transition bag, and you're pulling out a helmet, you're pulling out shoes, there's so much stuff, and it's so close quarters. I'm like, basically, I just throw everything to them, and I'm like, please pick this up, put it in the bag,
away, yeah.
let me go. I can grab everything I need, because the only thing I do is put on socks, shoes, and a helmet, and I go. But just let them, put everything in the bag, tie it, put it in the pile. Because you're trying to put a wetsuit in this little bag, and you have about a foot of room. Everyone's touching you. It doesn't work. But if you can get someone to help you with that, more so than changing clothes or stuff like that.
Yeah. And I think earlier when we talked about the swim, we didn't mention wetsuits, but since they've moved the date,
I'm just going to interrupt real quick. This is the turn that you would make a left onto your second loop. 390 feet. We're just going to go on in.
So there's a sign back there if you're doing it before race day it's pointing this way to Louisville and it's pointing left to Buckner. So that's just kind of a landmark to look at if you're needing to
Buckner.
make that turn. Yeah.
Oh, you want to go to Buckner?
No, but that's what it says. Yeah.
But I mean, I'm sure people are like, I want to go to Buckner, Kentucky. That's real good.
Buckner sounds like a blast.
Continue, sorry.
Oh yeah. But so wetsuits. So since they moved the date to October, like it's been the last couple years, it has always been wetsuit legal.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't. You will see, because I know we talked about weather can fluctuate. You will see the temperature of the water change, but thus far it has always been clearly wetsuit legal. It hasn't been super close.
In 15 it was 68 degrees. In 16 it was the warmest. It was like 73 and a half. It was actually the Saturday before not wetsuit legal, and it dropped enough that night. It was unseasonably warm in 16. This past year it was 72, 71, kind of in that range. But all 3 years it was wetsuit. Even like race week it wasn't. It was still like 76. Our nights get pretty chilly here in October, so it brought it down pretty quick.
As I was gonna say, unless it had just been very, very hot without dropping like that at night, that would be the only thing that would make me think maybe it would be close. But thus far, it's always been.
Because in 16, the race week, it was in the 80s every day. It was hot that week.
Yeah.
And it still dropped enough at night to get the water temperature down.
And there are wetsuit strippers who, when you get out of the water, they'll help you get your wetsuit off. Basically, you just kind of take off your the top part and sit down, and they just sort of fling it off of you.
Literally, they'll rip it off.
Yeah. And so the one thing to be careful of, because I almost lost it and I saw multiple people do that, is when you're ending the swim, you're basically swimming up to a staircase that's that's off of the I don't want to say dock, but it's like a concrete where our waterfront is. And so you essentially, you've been swimming for quite a while, and now you have to try to stand on this staircase, and it's very difficult. So make sure that you kind of get your feet there and stand up and take a second to stand there before you just start moving forward, because you will feel very wobbly. And I did see quite a few people take a tumble, and I almost did.
So there's basically 4 sets of stairs, and there's multiple volunteers on all the stairs on both sides that will basically, if you get close, they'll not only will grab you and pull you close, they pull you in, they'll basically hold you till you get your feet under you and start to move, because your balance is so weird when you make that transition. And they're trained to hold you very, by the arm very firmly. They're not just very loosely holding you. They're basically, because they know, like, when you stand up, you're dizzy and you don't really know what's going on. You pull your cap off, your water's coming out of your ears.
And they know that, but you will have the urge to just go, because I remember them saying, take a minute, and I'm like, oh, I'm good, and I tried to run forward, and I was not good.
Yep.
So just take that second.
We'll do some more videos of transitions and things for the channel too, and just to show people, like, you come out of the water here, you run over here to get the tent, you run out from here. The run course is kind of it's not a boring run course, but it's not. It's a run course. You run. It's flat. It's marked out. Like there's not a lot to see there, but there is quite a bit going on downtown as far as transitions. You have to go over here and go over there. And I know a lot of folks knowing what to expect can make it easier for you.
Yeah, the run course, because it is an out and back that you do twice. There are a lot of spectators, so as far as sightseeing, there's not a ton to see, but it does make it go by fast when you've got so many people in that concentrated area who are cheering for you. Yes.
You didn't even know, did you?
For a minute.
Hey, the sun's out.
Oh, yeah. It is pretty nice. Welcome to Goshen. Apparently home of a PGA champion.
How is it?
That's what that sign said.
Oh, well, I guess it's true.
Who knew? If there's any golf fans out there.
Yeah, PGA champion. We don't know which one, but one of them lived in Goshen.
One of them.
It's also a post office. If you need to mail anything, you stop at the Goshen post office.
See, there's lots of things you can do during the race. I'm hungry and I just ate. So at this point, I know we've said it a little bit, but you are feeling better. You've kind of gotten through that. I know everybody kind of has a little bit of a different sort of mileage spot where they start to feel it and start to kind of go down, but typically I would say around here you're feeling a little bit better.
Yeah, you know you've got it.
Yeah, if you've made it this far, you know that you're going to make it to the end. So it's really, for me, it's really that like 70, 75-ish to like 85, 90 where I'm like, ugh, those are just my like bleh miles. And then after that, I'm like, okay.
Because you're in at this point in the race, you're in the like low 90s right now.
Yeah.
I mean, you've almost, like I always think of it as you ride a Century, you get to 100, and then you're mentally, I did 100, I'm done. Here you do have to do 10 more miles. So don't get too caught up. I just have to get to 100 and I'm done. You still have to do 10 more.
We're both doing Dirty Kanza, so that whole concept is scaring me a little. When you get
to 200, you still have 6 more to go?
Right. Because I'm imagining when I get to 100 and then I have to keep going.
To do another 100?
And do another 100
keep going?
plus 6, yeah. Very excited. No, I really am.
She's really not excited. Don't let her. This was all my idea, and it's going to be awesome.
It'll be fine. I'll make it.
We will not be doing a drive-through video of Dirty Kanza.
No,
for those of you that also want to do that.
But we will be there if anyone's doing it this year.
We're getting back into some more traffic now. We're back into Prospect.
as far as accommodations, if anybody's trying to figure out hotels, anything like that, there's a lot of people in Louisville that do Airbnb. We do have a decent amount of hotels. As far as accessibility, I know where we showed you, so we're down on kind of the waterfront area, is more of the downtown area. So if you can stay at a downtown hotel, just as far as ease of getting your bike to where it needs to be and walking down to the expo, that would be ideal if that's something that's still open and still available. There are several hotels downtown, but just know that, we are a fairly big city, so as far as accommodations, I know I've done a half Ironman I've done Steelhead, which is in Benton Harbor in Michigan, and that's always been a little bit harder to find accommodations for. And then we're both doing the half in Chattanooga this year, and we were able to find accommodations, fairly easily. But I know, we've both done Muncie in the past, and I ended up doing an Airbnb where we stayed with a family, and it was absolutely fine. It was a great experience, but it was very hard to find accommodations. And I didn't look extremely far out, but I looked what I thought was far enough out, and it filled up very fast because it was a small town. So just know that we do have a lot of accommodations here.
Louisville is also it's unlike a lot of the bigger cities, it's very compact. I live from Louisville pretty far out, and it's a 15-minute drive downtown. So really wherever you are. Also, this time of year, if you're watching this in the spring, summer, that is probably the worst time to find a room for Ironman because everyone's booked and no one's canceled yet. Race week, if you can deal with the stress of that, 2 weeks before, people are like, I can't go, I'm injured, I can't do it, they'll cancel. I know there's a Facebook page, I think it's this Ironman Louisville 2018. There's always people on there trying to sell their reservations or transfer them without paying fees. We also have a brand new hotel being built, the Omni, which is supposed to be really nice.
Mm-hmm.
If you like something a little bit different, 21C is a really cool kind of artsy hotel. The Seelbach is a really nice hotel. If you want something different from just your standard, Marriott's and stuff like that. We just hit the 100-mile mark, by the way. So on race day, right back at that turn is the 100-mile mark. You'll hit that. And everything else, it's just the last 10 are just flat.
Yeah, we just took that right turn back onto River Road, which is, that initial stretch, and is very flat.
And then we also have the aid station is right up here. This is your last aid station of the day. You can skip it if you want. I would encourage you to eat and drink as much as you can before you start running. I know I have to at this point pretty much force it. I just want to get off the bike, and I'm like, I can deal with it later, but it's generally better if you can get something in.
Yeah.
It's right in here is the aid station.
I can't remember my grand total, but I think I ate something like 6 or 7 bananas throughout the course of the day. Other things too, but for whatever reason, the bananas were my go-to.
And at the H, I know they have, of course, the Gatorade water, goo. If you catch them early, I've seen Cliff Bars.
Yeah.
Oranges. The run course has a lot more stuff on, because you're not riding by 20 miles an hour.
Yeah. They start to have chips and chicken broth and things like that.
Red Bull, Coke, pretzels, chips, Goose, Gatorade, water, grapes, oranges.
Yeah.
Did I miss anything?
I think that's mostly
That's the
what
bulk
they
of
have.
it.
Do they have pickles? Or is that...
I don't think they have pickles.
Do they not? Some of the centuries always have pickles, so I couldn't remember.
Pickles are becoming popular. Apparently they work if you like pickles.
Mm-hmm.
Pickles are disgusting.
I love pickles.
Ugh.
But people just drink the juice. That I don't know if I can go that far.
Ugh.
But I like to eat the actual pickles.
No,
Actually, I probably could drink the
disgusting.
juice. They make a Cliff Bar gel that's pizza flavored. I've seen that. I have not tried it.
thought you were going to say pickle flavored. I'm like,
No,
oh.
they probably do. I bet if you looked it up, some company has tried it. But yeah, there's definitely plenty on the run.
And they're based on the run. They're every mile there's an aid station on the run.
Yeah. And I know, you know, like you said, on the bike there's a little bit less just because you're not going to be riding by grabbing a handful of chips. But I think it's just personal preference. I like to, you know, take a decent amount of stuff with me from transition, just because I don't know, I just do. I like to have certain things. I like peaches. If there's anything that you like that's not going to be on the course, but I definitely wouldn't say it's necessary to like stuff yourself with stuff that you brought from home, as long as you're okay with what's provided on the course. I think it's just kind of a personal preference thing.
My strategy has always been I bring 3 bottles, and then I bring most of my food and I have it in a bag, in like a bento box type deal on the front. So I don't necessarily rely on the course for like solids, and I just grab Gatorade and water to go with my food and salt. For me personally, I know some people can't. You know, if you have an Infinite Mix or some other brand of mix, you have to mix water. That's more difficult, but you can always just grab the water and mix it.
And he just brought up a good point of salt. Again, another personal preference thing. He likes the base salt where you actually are physically eating the salt and can taste it. I prefer like the pill form where you just swallow it. On the course, I have only ever seen base salt.
On the run.
On the run. Yeah,
Yes,
on the run.
On the run.
So if you do prefer more of a pill form, I would just make sure that you have that with you.
Yeah.
I would also make sure that you have it in like a Ziploc bag or something of that nature, because I once saw a guy, it got hot and it sort of like disintegrated the shell and he tried to eat it and he threw up, and it was a whole event that I watched this poor man have, so I would suggest keeping that dry. But just something to remember on the run course, because they do only provide the base salt.
Yeah, and that's actually Base that provides it. Matt and his team come in and they're ambassadors. It's not an Ironman.
Oh,
like
okay.
Ironman isn't giving the salt to it.
Oh, okay. So it's just,
they have a tin.
so it's not everywhere.
The actual Base is giving
Gotcha.
it.
So there you go.
They do a lot of races though through their ambassador program.
Yeah.
And it does, and it works. It's not necessarily pleasant. You get used to it,
I mean, it's
but
not
it does
terrible. It just
work.
depends on how you like to.
Even if if you lost it in the bike, because a lot of people will lose, like you put it back in your jersey pocket and it slips and it falls. You're like, well, can you go back and get it? It's better than cramping and walking for 2 hours. Just chug some salt.
Make sure that your Garmin and anything like that is secure. There's nothing worse than riding past someone's fallen Garmin, which I did.
I would stop and get that.
I think I would too, but I have ridden past one, so I guess it just depends on financially how much you cared about that Garmin flying out. But just make sure, I know in the heat of the race it's hard to focus on details like that, but make sure you do that.
If you train and your Garmin moves and mounts it around, fix it. Fix it before race day. Yeah, Al uses a watch. She uses the 935.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have a watch for the swim and the run. I use a bike computer for the bike. Whatever works. And you can probably see the river in the view. Like it's up a little bit. It's not too bad. Generally, it's normal level, very calm on a race day. And also, you don't ever touch the bottom of it. It's like you jump off a dock and you climb up the stairs, so there's not any like wading in and like you just jump in the water, swim and get out of the water.
Is it Muncie that was squishy? Or maybe I'm thinking of a different one. Where you walk in, it's like a mud bottom.
Oh, anytime you do it in a lake.
Yeah.
Where you have like a boat ramp or like a shore.
Yeah.
Steelhead is that way. Like you're
Steelhead's
walking
sand, so it's not. You're not but I've felt some.
Yeah, you still don't know what's going on. And I mean, it's generally, it's okay, but what if you just hit something sharp and you cut your foot for the day and then it gets infected? And,
yeah, it's nice that you don't have to deal with that. There is on the swim a sandbar.
There is.
Suppose if you cut what I was talking about earlier, where you jump in and you're going alongside of that island, when you make that turn, there's supposedly it can get shallower. I didn't hit that.
If you hug the shore, the water's only maybe 5 foot deep, 4 foot deep. So if I'm over 6 foot, like I can stand on it and walk. The first 2 years the first year I hit an accident. The second year I hit it on purpose because I wanted a break.